All right, in this lesson, I am going to show you several different stamping projects, and this is my tray. I took a large tray and laid out all the stamps that I want to use, and that way I can see them and just turn around and reach for the one that I need. So here we go. This first example is a trip to the caverns, and I am going to be stamping some dragonflies because of that 4x6 card that I have down in the bottom right. I am going to get out a piece of paper and I'm going to stamp in several different colors of ink. I tried the blue that you see sitting there, but it didn't match as well as I liked. So I'm going to stick with gray and then some pink. And then for that green that I have, I am actually going to stamp it, but it's going to be too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp on a separate piece of paper, and then I will take what's left over and put that on the paper. And it turned out pretty cool. I like the leftover ink or the shadow or whatever's left on the stamp. I like that to use. Turned out pretty cool. So you can see where I did it right there. I just stamped it, and then I stamped a second time on my paper to make it a little lighter. And that way it color coordinates with the card overall. I'm just going to cut out one or two of these so that way you can see what I plan on doing with them. But what I'm doing is I'm going to stamp everything that I need to stamp, and then I'll come back and assemble the pages. So that's why I'm just cutting out one or two, and then I'm going to move on from there. So you can see I created a little cluster above the 6x8, and now I'm adding a flip pocket, 4x6 flip pocket right there, and then I will punch the holes. And what I'm going to do on the inside is create a custom 4x6 card with some more dragonflies and another sentiment. So I'm going to go ahead and push my album up to the top of where the camera is, and that way you can still see the album and see me working. So here's the 4x6. My idea is to take the dragonfly, like I said, and I am going to stamp in the corners, the left and the right. I am starting with a stamp that says never stop exploring. I'm going to put that in the middle. That way I can talk about what we did in the caverns and the different things that we saw. I'm going to stamp pink and green and gray, the same color, sticking with the same color scheme that I have on the front. And also, I want to mention, when I journal, I put very light pencil lines, so that way I know where to journal, and I can journal straight, and then I'm just going to journal by hand, and then I will erase the pencil marks. For most paper types, this works really, really well. Sometimes this matte paper does not erase so great. All right, on to the second example. The second example is another 6x8 spread, and this one is documenting Father's Day, and like I said in my starting video, this spread had a different color scheme to it, but I really wanted to just stick with green and dark blue and kind of more have a nature theme to it. I am going to adhere this 4x8 photo of my son to a white piece of cardstock, and eventually I will stamp a pattern on it, so that way I can have a custom 4x8 little journaling pattern. I'm just going to punch the holes right now, and also for that digital brush that's on the photo of my son, I didn't want to keep that anymore, so I'm going to put a chipboard on the top that says "Here Comes Summer." I think I'll probably do that later. I also am going to cover up this Soak Up the Sun in the middle of that collage, and I will do that with a stamped sentiment. Right now I'm just going to pull off everything that I need. I need a 3x4 white piece of paper, I need the 4x8, and I need the 4x6 paper to get started. I'm going to stamp Bring On the Adventures, and that is the sentiment that I'm going to cut out to put on the 4x6. So that way it covers it up and I can go with my color scheme that I want. I'm going to use a stamp that says Loving, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat that several times in the dark blue ink. And then I will just stack some more strips on top and bottom. And then I will tie all three of these pieces together with some leaf stamping as I go throughout my project. I'm starting on the 3x4 right here, And once again, I'm using the, I want to say, leftover ink. I'm going to stamp once and then stamp twice to get another stamp impression. And it turns out really awesome. I absolutely love how that card turned out. And adding in that second layer when you stamp, it almost adds another layer of dimension and makes the stamps and the leaves look more realistic. I'm going to go ahead and stamp on the 4x6 Father's Day. I did it on the left and the right. And now I'm going to do this on the 4x8. All up and down the left side and right side, and adding in the leftover ink to add some more dimension. I'll also take another stamp that's Let's Do Summer. I think that's what it's called. Let's Do Summer. And I'm going to go ahead and repeat that sentiment all the way down the middle. Let's do summer. And I will use that dark blue ink as well. And since I got to that whiter part right there, I did 2 of the stamped sentiment. And I'll just carry that all the way through. And I think at the end, I'm going to add a word strip. And now all of these pieces have a really cohesive feel to them. Yep, there's that word strip. I add it to the bottom. I'm also going to get out a chipboard that I had that's love, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on the photo of my husband, but I will do that later. All right, the third example. This one I wanted to include because it's a little bit longer, because I'm going to kind of make my own custom fireworks, and I'm making 2x2 cards, which I have not shown you. This is a 4th of July spread, obviously, and I have lots of photos, so I did it in 2x2. Instead of having to add lots and lots of page protectors or trying to figure it out, I just stuck with 2x2, and I will make my own cards. I'm starting with a 4x6 with a 3x4 photo, and I'm doing currently. I'm stamping currently, and then I also have a circle stamp, and I'm going to use that to make the fireworks. I'm stamping it lots of different times in lots of different spots, and also using that messy paper that you keep seeing. That's my stamp paper, where I use that to protect what I don't want to get stamped. I'm using that circle stamp, and eventually I will doodle some lines to create the fireworks. I also stamped loving, which I just love that stamp and that font that is used in that loving sentiment. So once I have all these circles stamped, I'm going to go ahead and get started on working on the doodles. The currently did not stamp so great, so that is why I stamped it on the crisp white paper and then fussy cut it and put it on the 4x6. So here is the doodles, and I'm doodling dashed lines and also straight lines. I think overall it turned out pretty good, and it looks like fireworks to me, and I love how it's a personal touch to my album. So I'm going to finish up this card, and then I'm going to start on my 2x2 cards and repeat the same process. Adding a few more lines to my card just so that way I can get different angles. I have another 4x6 card that I am going to make down in the bottom of the pocket. I'm going to use a variety of things: chipboard that says "So Love This Time of Year," also a chipboard that says "Celebrate," and then I will go to town with the stamping. I'm going to stamp all kinds of circles in the 3 different colors that I'm using, and then I will do the doodling once again. I've now pulled over the 2x2 cards, and I've started stamping on those cards as well. That way I can kind of create a flow. Like if I'm using the red ink, I can use the red ink on all the different cards just to make it a little bit quicker. I'm also going to change the color of that Celebrate. I think I will do that later on. I'm going to change it from just the wood veneer to some black. I'm going to stamp on a piece of paper "So Darn Fun," and then back on the 4x6 I'm stamping "Loving These Moments." I'm going to stamp 2 rows of them. Didn't turn out quite so straight, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. And now I'm going to move on to the 2x2 cards and stamping a few more sentiments on that piece of white paper. This one says "Fun Looks Like," and then I'll take another 2x2 card and I'm going to repeat stamp on it several times today's story and making me happy. I took the two sentiments and I stacked them on top of each other. That way I could get the pattern that I want, and I'm just kind of doing a messy stamping. I will take that same sentiment, stamp it on the crisp white paper, and then cut that out in a little bit. Adding the doodles to the 4x6 and just using a ruler to kind of turn it. That way I can get kind of the angles that I want to mimic the fireworks. So I'm going to finish up these doodles for all my cards, and then I will be done with this pretty giant spread for 4th of July. Okay, so I have all my pieces done, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it back onto the 6x8 spread, so that way you can kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like when I come back to the next phase of putting everything together. Love how this came together. All right, so you just saw 3 examples of different stamp projects, and I thought I would go through and show you just a few more to finish out this lesson. Okay, so for this one, I just took a stamp and turned it sideways, July Memories, and just stamped it all the way across, and then used a wood veneer. The next one I wanted to show you is I took the same stamp, Loving These Moments, and stamped it in a multitude of colors, lots of variety, and then I used it almost like pattern paper for right here, here, and here. So that's another way to use your stamps. Another way to use your stamps is as grass. I had a leaf and I just covered the part that I didn't need and just put the stamp on it multiple times, and that way it comes across as grass. Last example that I wanted to show you was this one. I stamped out Party Time in a dark ink and then used a light ink to stamp some flowers, and it creates a really cool pocket card. All right, so those are all my ideas for stamping, and when I do the walkthrough of the completed album, you'll probably see some more. So I hope you enjoyed these different ideas to make your own journaling cards and stretch your stash and just make the album more personalized. All right, hope you enjoy making your journaling cards.